All right, in this video, we're going to start in Revelation chapter 14, and I'll do a real quick catch up to what we're looking at since we're kind of in the middle of a flow right now. We are in the section of Revelation 12 through 16, the chapters 12 through 16, and these chapters are a series of 7 visions, and these visions for the most part have to do with the spiritual warfare behind the curtain, behind the scenes of what's happening and why Christians are being persecuted and why they're suffering and what the cause of that is. Now, I'm not talking about the cause that I can see. I'm talking about the behind the scenes, the real spiritual cause. And the ultimate answer is because Jesus has defeated the dragon, Satan, and cast him out of heaven down to the earth. And now he's mad and he's taking it all out on Jesus' people. And so we've looked at the first vision, which is the dragon being kicked out of heaven. The second vision, which is the sea beast. I'm going to call that the hostile empires of humanity, specifically that persecute God's people. Then the third vision was the land beast, and the land beast is the picture of the completeness of sinful incompleteness. 666 is what we talked about. And whatever he is, or whoever he is, or however he operates, this false prophet actively causes people to worship the sea beast, who is a servant of the devil. And so there's those pictures. If you feel frustrated by chapter 13, so do I. I've even thought maybe at some point when I'm done with these videos, I might go back and re-record those, but that's where we are right now. So we are at chapter 14 and vision number 4 of 7. So I think I was looking through this just before I started recording, and it looks like there's going to be a lot of showing you in my Bible what I've done with this, because there's just several different things in here. So let me start by showing you what this looks like, and then I'll go through and actually mark it into my electronic Bible, and you can mark it with me if you want. Okay, so let's read it first. Since I've already got this screen pulled up, let's just read it right here instead of on my electronic Bible. Chapter 14 and verse 1. Then I looked, and behold, on Mount Zion stood the Lamb, and with him 144,000 who had his name and his father's name written on their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven like the roar of many waters, and like the sound of loud thunder. The voice I heard was like the sound of harpists playing on their harps, and they were singing a new song before the throne and before the 4 living creatures and before the elders. No one could learn that song except the 144,000 who had been redeemed from the earth. It is these who have not defiled themselves with women, for they are virgins. It is these who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These have been redeemed from mankind as first fruits for God and the Lamb, and in their mouth no lie was found, for they are blameless. Okay, so first thing you're going to do, I think we've already done this, but the first thing you're going to do is mark the big section. This is the big section. Let's just show you. I have already brought that over. Here is my note. My note that goes over here says this is the 4th of 7 visions. Then I looked, that's my indicator that I'm at a vision, and this is the vision, the Lamb, and with him 144,000. So here's something that I put in my Bible that I think is kind of important. I'll go down so you can see both of these at the same time, because it kind of goes together. Right here, I have a reference that says from 12:11, and this section, the thing that I'm going to call this, you can see my heading that I've given it right here, God's people. These are God's people. But But specifically, I think what I might do is change that. When I write that into my Bible, I think what I'm going to write is the faithful dead. Because these are the people, this section, these are the people who have been killed for their faith and are now currently in heaven with Jesus. There's the Lamb, and with him, the fullness of God's people. In this next section that we're going to look at down here, I actually whited out the heading in my Bible to write what I think is a better heading, and that is, this is a practical message for those who are left. So in this section you have, what about those who have already been killed for their faith? And in this section we have, what about those who have not been killed for their faith, but they're still living in this life? What are the things that we want them to know? And so I wrote these things that said from 12:11, from 12:12. And I think at the time when we were over here, I told you about this, but I think, I don't remember. I said we would talk about this whenever we get to it. I wrote 2:14:1 through 5, which is that first section, and 2:14:6 through 13. So look at this. In verse 11, so in chapter 12, this is the chapter that has to do with this war between the dragon and Jesus and his people. In verse 11, it says, they have conquered him. We're talking about salvation for God's people up here. They have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, for they loved not their lives even to death. The faithful dead, that's this first section up here. Those who have been killed because of their faith. And so I just said, okay, let's talk about those people over in chapter 14 and verses 1 through 5. Verse 12, therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them, but woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil has come down to you in great wrath, because he knows that his time is short. So those are people who have not been killed yet for their faith. And so here is the practical message that we're going to speak to that group of people. That's the way that, I divide these different visions up. Okay, so let's do this. Over here, let's call this, I said, before I said this is the fourth of 7 visions, and the title that I'm going to give it is Jesus's Faithful Dead. You could say whatever you want. You might want to call them martyrs if you want. A martyr is a person who was killed for their faith, but the faithful dead. And I had this little reference on here. I looked, behold, on Mount Zion stood the Lamb, and with him the 144,000. You know, that's not the first time that we've heard about this 144,000. And so what I think I'm going to do here is just put a little note, and I just deleted that. I wonder if I can undo it. It happens. Sorry. This is I can't talk and work at the same time. Delete this. No. Okay, let's fix what I just did. Then I looked. This is what I was going to say a second ago. I'm not going to be editing this out. Sorry about that. It's just not something that I care to spend my time on. So you're going to have to deal with me while I fix this right now. Then I looked, and behold, him stood, what did I have? The Lamb, and with him the 144,000. That was orange in a section. And what I want to do is I want to make a note on this word selection. It's not a word note, it's just a note. And I'm going to say, okay, this is where we left off. Revelation 7 and verses 3 and 4. And see, look here. 144,000, chapter 7, verses 3 and 4. And the reason why I put chapter 7 and verses 3 and 4 is because that's where we heard about the 144,000. Do not harm the earth or the sea or the trees until we have sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads. And I heard the number of the sealed, 144,000 sealed from every tribe of the sons of Israel. Now, when we were there, we talked about how the 144,000, that fullness of God's people, it's not what you think it is. It's not just the sons of Israel. It is this, a great multitude of people. Nevertheless, the number 144,000 represents the fullness of God's people. And so just to have a little cross-reference there about the 144,000, so you remember that we've already talked about this is the servants of God. Another thing that I think I'm going to do, this is going to be hard. I don't know how I'm going to do this in my electronic Bible, but I use yellow for my main point. And I don't want to highlight 2 full verses here. That's not that important to me. But I kind of just put a yellow bracket down the side of my Bible to say this. Here's the main point. Okay, here are these 144,000 with the Lamb, and here's the point. It is these who have not defiled themselves with women, for they are virgins. It is these who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These have been redeemed from mankind as first fruits for God and the Lamb. That first fruits for God and the Lamb is that they've already died. Like there's people left, but these people have already died, and in their mouth no lie was found, for they are blameless. A couple things that I might say about this. I put a little reference here next to this idea of not defiled themselves with women, for their virgins. We're going to see that a couple more times, maybe even in this video. I just pointed myself back to chapter 2 and verse 20, one of the letters to the 7 churches. In chapter 2 and verse 20, this is where we talked about Jezebel. And the thing that we talked about Jezebel is she's referred to as somebody who is teaching God's people to practice sexual immorality and eat foods sacrificed to idols. I'm trying to look at another thing. Where's the thing where she's referred to as a prostitute or something like that? Maybe not. I don't see it and just off the top of my head real quick. But what we did when we talked about that sexual immorality thing at the time was we said she persecutes the people of God. She gets rid of the prophets of God, and she doesn't want to hear about, she brings false stuff into God's people. And so I wrote this little note right here that sexual immorality, maybe, let me come on the screen so I can talk to you about this. Maybe it's true that a part of this false teaching is to participate in actual sexual immorality. And or maybe that the sexual immorality is somehow connected to temple worship. That's a place of all kinds of debauchery. That's possible. But I think the main point here is that the sexual immorality is unfaithfulness to God. And so that's what my note says in my Bible. Sexual immorality equals spiritual infidelity. And I wrote Ezekiel 16, but there's all kinds of places in the Old Testament where you can see that theme. Hosea would be a really good example of that. But just to remember here, it is these who have not defiled themselves with women. I don't think that that's saying that these people are actually virgins who have never had a sexual relationship with somebody, whether they're married or not. I think what's happening here is that we're talking about their spiritual fidelity. I wrote infidelity there. That should be their spiritual fidelity. They have been God's bride, period, and have not horsed around with any other gods or sacrificed to the emperor or any other gods in any other way. I do love this. If I was going to highlight one thing in this section, it would probably be this. It is these who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. When I read that, I think that would be a really neat thing to have written on my tombstone. Like if I die, well, I'm planning on being cremated, but if I was going to be buried and if I was going to have a headstone, that would be neat. Ryan followed the Lamb wherever he goes. I like that saying a lot. In their mouth, no lie was found. They're blameless. We don't say that other things are gods, and we don't give those other things the place of gods in our life. There's no lie found in our mouth. We tell the truth about God. So that is, how am I going to do that? I think since I can undo it with no problem if I don't like it later, I can just go ahead and boom, there's the main point. This is who this 144,000 is. So that's going to be vision number 4 of 7, the faithful dead, those who have died because of their faith in Jesus. Okay, let's move down to this vision. I've got this written. Then I saw, this is the 5th of 7 visions. And on this one, I'm going to write this: 4 practical messages for those who are left. And the those who are left is those who have not yet died for their faith. What does it mean? What's it going to look like to live as a Christian in this life? And I think that you've already seen how I did this in my Bible, but I'll show you and talk about it specifically now. Number 1, practical message number 1, verses 6 and 7. Practical message number 2, verse 8. I just made little brackets, so I can say 1, 2, 3. Verses 9, 10, and 11 is number 3. And then I got to come over here. Verses 12 and 13 is practical message number 4. And as I read through each of these sections, remember, yellow is my main point. And so yellow is going to be, what is the main point? What is the practical message here for those who are left? So verse 6, number 1. Then I saw another angel flying directly overhead with an eternal gospel to proclaim to those who dwelt on the earth, to every nation and tribe and language and people. And he said with a loud voice, this is the message. So message number 1, and you'll notice that I've underlined God, him, and him, because I want to remember to put my emphasis on that. I don't think you read this as fear God and give him glory. I think you say fear God and give him glory compared to the beast. That's why I wrote this over here. Don't worship the beast, fear God and give him glory, because the hour of his judgment, the beast, the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him, God, who made heaven and earth and sea and the springs of water. So let's go ahead and mark that. I don't know how, I can't put brackets around this. So let's just do it this way. Fear God and give him glory, yellow. And I do like this. Underline, worship him, underline. Oh, you know what I can do also? Yellow, worship him. Message number 1. For those who are left on this planet who have not yet died for their faith, make sure that you're worshiping the right one. Worship God and give him glory and fear him, not the beast or anything else for that matter. That's number 1. Just in case you wanted to see this again, that was number 1. This is number 2 in verse 8. I'll leave it here so you can see. Verse 8, another angel, a second followed saying, Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, she who made all the nations drink the wine of the passion of her sexual immorality. So let's mark that, because that's going to be the main point. Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. And so the main thought there would be, worship God and don't worship the beast, because the beast is going to be destroyed. Babylon, it's the way that it's being spoken of here in this section is it's as if Babylon has already been destroyed. That's how certain it is. Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. And so I'm not going to write this in my electronic Bible, But I put a little note here. Fallen is Babylon. Just a note that chapter 17:1 through 19:10, that's going to be, we're going to start a series of 7 more visions. Looks like I'm not going to be able to show you this. We're going to start a series of 7 more visions in just a second. In chapter 17 to 19:10, the very first vision is going to be, I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute. Who is the great prostitute? Babylon the Great. So the prostitute who engages in sexual immorality, Babylon is going to be destroyed. Message number 2, do not wrap yourself up with Babylon, because Babylon is already destroyed. Babylon is going to be destroyed. Listen, I'm trying to keep this like very much, what is the story of the book of Revelation and how can we tell the story of the book of Revelation? But I think it's, this is something that we should take away from this message. And that is, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of Christians who are very wrapped up in the politics of this world, whether they're followers of a politician or followers of a political party, or even followers of a specific nation. I'm a supporter of the United States of America. I'm a supporter of Russia. I'm not a supporter of China, whatever it happens to be. Hey, listen, it's all Babylon, and Babylon's going to be destroyed. So how about this? Fear God, give him glory, worship him, and remember that Babylon's donezo. So let's not put all of our I don't know what the way to describe that is. Let's not put all of our eggs in that basket. Let's not put any of our eggs in that basket, because Babylon has been destroyed, is going to be destroyed. Okay, I think that's all I want to say for right now. I want to come back in just 1 second to this one, but not yet. Number 3. Number 3 is going to be verses 9, 10, and 11. This is the third message. And remember, I'm writing this in my Bible because this is going to help me teach and preach. I can just see my points as I go. No, I can see God's points as I go. Okay, verse 9. Let's read it. I'll get you the text here. I kind of like reading from the Bible, this Bible, instead of the electronic Bible when we read. Okay, verse 9. Another angel, a third, followed them. That's really nice to have those divisions. 1, 2, 3, one angel, a second angel, a third angel. So it's not just artificial divisions. A third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast and its image and receives the mark on his forehead or his hand, he also will drink of the wine of God's wrath, poured full strength into the cup of his anger. He will be tormented with fire and sulfur in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb, and the smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night, these worshippers of the beast and its image, whoever receives the mark of his name. Okay, message number 1, fear God, worship him. Message number 2, Babylon is fallen. Message number 3, don't worship the beast. I mean, it's kind of the same thing, but it's God saying, listen, people who are left, don't make this mistake. Whatever you do, don't make this the source of your security, the hope of your future, all of the things that it means to serve an idol. Don't worship the beast. And so let's go ahead and mark that. Verse 9. If anyone worships the beast and it's, I think that's probably enough for that one. If anyone worships the beast. I think what we're seeing here is these two things. Remember, there's the sea beast and then there's the land beast who has the mark of the beast. I think you're talking about the two beasts here, right here. Don't worship the beast and pay attention to the one who gives the mark of the beast. That's something kind of along those lines. So that's message number 3. Don't worship the beast. I did something here. I don't like this. I don't like this, but I don't know what else to do with it. And so it's going to be kind of hard to see. I just did it with a real light pencil, underline, a real light pencil underline, and a line that just goes all the way across the page. Can you believe that I did that? A line that goes all the way across the page connecting these two things. But I think that they're important to connect because fallen is Babylon the Great, she who made the nations. Look, drink the wine of the passion of her sexual immorality. Drink the wine of the passion of her sexual immorality. And then for those who worship the beast, guess what's going to happen? They will drink the wine of God's wrath. And so the idea here is if you want to worship the beast and drink the wine, that is, if you want to be drunk, and what does it look like whenever you're drunk? It looks like you're controlled by something. That's the reason why. You ever see a store when you're driving down the road and it says something like Ellisville Wine and Spirits? It's the reason why alcohol is called spirits, because when people drink it, it's as if they're possessed with something. And so the idea is, if you're going to worship Babylon and drink that wine and as if you're controlled by those forces, then guess what's going to happen? You're going to drink the wine of God's wrath. And I think that you might have saw this in chapter 16 and verse 19. Just look at this. When we get to chapter 16 and verse 19, the great city was split into 3 parts. I'll get it to where you can see it. The great city was split into 3 parts. The city of the nations fell. And God remembered Babylon the Great to make her drain the cup of the wine of the fury of his wrath. That one is not, you're not just going to drink the wine of God's wrath. You're going to drain the cup. You're going to have every single drop of the wrath of God. And so that's just a little picture of how those things connect. There's another one coming up, but I'll show you in just one second. Okay, number 4. Message number 4 for those who are left. Here is a call for the endurance of the saints. We've talked about that. Here is a call for the endurance of the saints, those who keep the commandments of God in their faith in Jesus. And I heard a voice from heaven saying, "Write this, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Blessed indeed, says the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, for their deeds follow them." So let's go ahead and mark message number 4. Here is a call for the endurance of the saints. I'm going to do that whole thing. And I don't remember if I've made this note yet or not. Let's see if it's there. No. I haven't made this note yet. You know what? Let's go ahead and make this note. Because I want to. That's the reason why. I wrote... I don't write this yet. Don't do this thing because I'm going to change it on you here real quick. Here is a call for the endurance of the saints. I wrote blue. Blue means pay attention to this word. And I said, look at chapter 13 and verse 10. Okay. Chapter 13 and verse 10. Here is a call for the endurance and faith of the saints. And then I've got this big long list of references to endurance. I think I regret writing that list. I'm going to make my note, my ultimate note. I call it my hub. I'm going to make my hub in chapter 1 and verse 9 because this is the first one. This is the first one that you see, and this is kind of like at the beginning, this is the message, or at least one of the major messages of the book of Revelation. I, John, your brother and partner in the tribulation and kingdom and patient endurance that are in Jesus. So John starts off by saying, hey, listen, the stuff that you're doing right now as God's people, having to endure hard times because of your faith. I'm doing it with you. And so there's all of these references to patient endurance throughout Revelation. And I think let's do, you know what? I won't make my full note right now, but since we're talking about it, how about we do it? Because I changed my mind again, because I want you to have time to do this. So what I'm going to do, I'll show you how I make a note like this. I'm going to go to Revelation 1 and verse 9, and I'm going to make my note on the word patient endurance. And here's the thing about this note. Remember on my key, orange means sections, purple means either subsections or themes. And so whenever you have a theme that runs throughout a book like this, when I see purple, it says, hey, there's more than just this one spot. Purple is a theme that runs through something. And so what I'm going to do with this one is, let's see here. I'm going to highlight it purple, which I don't love because it's going to get confusing with my subsections, but let's just do it for now. And I'm going to write this. I'm going to write endurance is one of the key messages of Revelation. And I'm going to make 2 bullet points of verses. Look at what I did. I wrote main message, 1 bullet point, and you'll notice that these are all from chapter 2 and 3. These are the letters to the 7 letters to the 7 churches. And then these are 2 different places. We're looking at both of these places right now where God specifically says, hey, listen, Christians, this is my message to you. I want you to endure. I want you to stick this out and hold on and not fall away. And so I'm going to make my 2 bullet points, and it's going to be Revelation 2 and verse 2, comma 3, comma 19, semicolon, Revelation 3 and verse 10. Let's look at those. Revelation 2 and verse 2, I know your works, your toil, your patient endurance. Verse 3, I know you are enduring patiently. Verse 19, I know your works, your love and faith and service and patient endurance. He's praising them for enduring because that's what we want to happen. We want you to endure. Chapter 3 and verse 10, because you have kept my word about patient endurance. And so there's that. I think on my list, I just like to have a nice complete list. So I'm going to start with Revelation 1 and verse 9. That's where this main note is. Okay, then the 2 other places is going to be Revelation 13 and verse 10 and Revelation 14 and verse 12. Okay, Revelation 13:10. Here is a call for the endurance and faith of the saints. 14:12. Here is a call for the endurance of the saints. One of the messages, one of the 4 messages to those who are left. Okay. Now, let me tell you what I do in a situation like this. I've got one hub about endurance where I've got everything listed. Okay? And so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Revelation 2 and verse 2. I'm running out of Bibles here. Revelation 2 and verse 2. I know your works, your toil, and your patient endurance. Okay, so I highlighted that. And I'm going to say, on this note, add an anchor of the selected text. And what that did, let's see, I don't want to highlight that purple. You know what I'd really like to do? You know what I can do? I can make it a purple note. There we go. Good enough. What I did was I took this note that you're looking at here on my screen, and I made it so this note is also attached to this patient endurance. So let's just do, and so what that would mean is in chapter 2 and verse 3, let's do this together. I won't do all of these. You don't have to worry about waiting for me to do all of these. Chapter 2 and verse 2. I know your works, and it says your patient endurance. And so I'll just take my little pen and I'll say C1:9. Also in verse 3, you are enduring patiently. That's really ugly. Sorry, I'll refocus for you here. That's really ugly, but that's just the way that I make a cross-reference system here. So let's do that real quick with each one of these. You are enduring patiently. Add an anchor of the selected text. Verse 19. I know your works, love, service, and your patient endurance. Add an anchor of the selected text. Chapter 3 and verse 10. You have kept my word about patient endurance. Add an anchor of the selected text. Chapter 13 and verse 10. Here is a call for the endurance and the faith of the saints. I'll add that anchor. And chapter 14 and verse 12. Here is a call for the endurance of the saints. Add an anchor. So that note is attached to all of the places that we're talking about that have something to do with endurance. Okay, I think that might be everything for this video. Let me just, oh no, there's one more thing. There's one more thing that I need to show you here that we need to do together. In message number 3, if anyone worships the beast, they have no rest. Red is bad. Not only bad, but contrasting. Those who worship the beast have no rest. Those who endure have rest, that they may rest. So how can we do this one? What is it? Verse 11. The smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever, and they have no rest. Red. And then verse 13. Blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on, that they may rest. Green. Okay, that one is everything that I have on this passage. So that is visions number 4 and 5. What happens to those who die because of this spiritual war with the devil, but they've died and they're faithful? They're in heaven with Jesus. What is the message for everybody who's left, who hasn't died yet? 4 things. Fear God, give him glory, worship him. Number 2, fallen is Babylon. Number 3, do not worship the beast. And number 4, the practical message, endure. Keep on going all the way to the end of the road. We'll start at chapter 14 and verse 14 in our next video.